Look at my new mask. It's got all the female Supreme Court justices on it.
Oh, that is awesome.
Nice.
I like that.
See, I love it. Except it's my whole, look, it's my whole face. Bridget, are we streaming?
We are.
Okay, very good. I'm going to call to order this staff meeting of the Hamilton County Board of County Commissioners, September 8th, 2020. We have 3 agenda items. So we will start with the first, and I think the quickest, which is 180 Walnut Development Agreement. Jeff, you're going to talk us through this?
Yeah, so I think this will be pretty quick, Commissioners. So this is just to pick up on at our last staff meeting. We had discussed a development agreement for 180 Walnut down at the banks, just adjacent to the Freedom Center. If you will recall, just as a refresher, and for those who may not have been logged on at the time, this is an agreement with Lincoln Properties. This is for a 17-story, $92.5 million LEED silver certified development. At completion, it will be approximately 370,000 square feet. That is a build out of nearly twice the minimum build requirements that's actually required for that lot under the specific declaration. There are no incentives within this, public incentives within this agreement. There are also at completion, it's estimated that the tower will house 1,400 to 1,600 employees. We're thinking at this point that it should be completed in the winter of 22. Again, this is all remedial for the board. We went through this back at the last staff meeting, but we did not have the resolution in front of you at that time to give you the opportunity to authorize me as administrator to sign off on the development agreement. So the resolution is here in front of you today, providing me with the authority to sign off on that development agreement. The administration, of course, recommends approval.
All right, very good. Yeah, so just to reiterate, we are starting to see the continuation of the build out of the banks. So this is an exciting program, or rather project, to put more office space down at the banks. So are there any questions or comments, commissioners?
Madam President, I have no questions or comments. It was thoroughly explained our last meeting. Thank you for the additional clarification, Jeff.
Welcome.
I'm just that I couldn't be more pleased. This is awesome.
Yeah, that's good. All right, very good. So Jeff, I am, upon your recommendation, going to move that we approve of the resolution authorizing the county administrator to enter into a development agreement regarding 180 Walnut Office Tower at the banks with LO Walnut LLC and the City of Cincinnati.
Second.
Mr. Dreehouse?
Yes.
Mr. Summer Dumas?
Yes.
Mr. Parks?
Yes.
All right, very good.
Thank you,
Thank you, Jeff. That's exciting. All right, our next item. Oh, this one relates to the policy agenda, and Jeff has gently been prodding us. I don't know if you've noticed in his weekly reports about how we might want to start thinking about our policy agenda for the upcoming budget cycle. So the policy agenda of the board informs how the budget dollars are spent, in addition to many other things, but it is one of the guiding documents. And so we always provide a policy agenda. Generally, it is originated out of the president's office and then distributed for addition, clarification, comment from the other offices. And so I am happy to initiate the process again this year, but we wanted to make sure that before we did that, we could revisit the policy agenda for 2019-2020 that guided the previous budget, so that we can kind of level set, see how we're doing, see what has been accomplished, and then see what has yet to be done, so that we can start to move on those priorities in the next budget cycle. So that's kind of the purpose for what we're doing today. We thought a staff meeting would be a great place to kind of flush it out. And so Jeff has prepared a PowerPoint. And Jeff, this it's a long PowerPoint. It's very thorough, I should say.
I hope to go through it quicker than it is and it seems. And thank you, Madam President. You teed it up perfectly and took away some of my interest. You already cut down on the time that I'm going to spend on it. So,
I didn't intentionally do that. I just, this is such an important document. And when I first got to the commission, I'll admit that when Todd Portune said from the president's office that he was going to initiate the policy agenda, I said, I mean, so much of what we do is mandated by the ORC. What kind of flexibility do we even have? And what is the purpose of a policy agenda? And I quickly found out upon his informing me that it really is an important document for the administration to understand, where if there are dollars or programs that we are already mandated to spend, how we spend them makes it like we have to run a jail, but how do we run the jail? What does the Office of Reentry look like? And so we've invested in some things that not only help us do the mandated services better, but if there are some flexible dollars, especially related to economic development, then or infant mortality or oral health or women's and girls or some of those kinds of things that we understand that and we're very clear about the direction of the board. So I have grown to have a real appreciation for the policy agenda. So anyways, thanks for helping us run through this exercise of trying to figure out how we did in the last cycle and what more needs to be done.
Thank you, Madam President. And yeah, this is, as you indicated, I think this is what I'll walk you through is a fairly thorough presentation in terms of how the board has prioritized work over the past 2 years, but it's not meant to be a deep dive on any one of these issues. And in fact, as you will note, it leaves out a host of stuff that the county and the board in particular has directed and prioritized, not because those things are not important, simply because there's too much to get to. And what the administration will typically do is at the beginning of 2021, we'll provide a comprehensive item by item summary of everything in the county's work plan. So the administration typically takes the policy document, boils it down into a work plan that includes 100 some odd items. And at the end of the policy cycle, which will be at the end of 2020, we will report out comprehensively to the board on all of that in a written document that can also be the subject of a staff meeting at the board's discretion. So as you said, Madam President, the policy agenda is really it's the guiding document that the administration uses in terms of how we go about accomplishing the work. I think you said it perfectly. We are mandated to do a lot of things, but how we go about doing them is another question. We've got a boat in the water with the order to cross the ocean, but there's multiple paths to get there. And the policy document is really the rudder that helps us understand which direction we're going to go. So I'll walk through this presentation today, and I'm going to try to share my screen right now and see if this will work here.
So far, so good. Yep, we can see it.
Okay. And let me see if I can hit. It is not letting me start the slideshow, but I can just, let me try it one more time here. Oh, there we go. Can you all still see that?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So can you see the version with the slides also on the side?
Yes.
I did.
Yes.
All right. I'm just going to walk through it in that form. I don't think it's going to hurt anything as it relates to the presentation. So, the board's policy agenda for 2019-2020 really focused on a lot of different areas: basic services, public safety, financial stewardship. And I'm not going down word by word in the policy agenda, but I'm just gleaning it out so that the public who might be watching as well can just see a big picture of what the focus was on. MSD and water rates, economic development, serving vulnerable populations. There are a number of Board of County Commissioner initiatives, and then as well as accessibility and open government. So again, this is not designed to be an all-inclusive presentation today, but I just want to walk through the policy agenda and what the board has done to prioritize different approaches to the policy agenda. For example, the first item is public safety. And the board in the policy agenda, as Madam President said at the beginning of this the meeting, we're required to run a jail. How you go about running that jail is maybe more important than just the mandate of being required to run a jail. So the board policy agenda specifically targeted improving our core infrastructure, but also making sure that we are continuing to supplement the array of rehabilitation and treatment alternatives that we have out in the community. So there was really a prioritization on rehab and on alternatives that help reintegrate people coming through the criminal justice system back into society. So one of those projects was the Justice Center Capacity Project, where we're looking to build out 90 to 100 treatment beds within the Justice Center, paid for in large part by a $2.5 million capital grant from the state of Ohio. And we're now actively working that project, should be complete by June of 2021. And that is moving forward. In 2019, the board also launched, in partnership with the courts and the sheriff, the first ever in Hamilton County Community Alternative Sentencing Center, which is a program that helps, in particular with step-down programming, with people coming out of the Justice Center who otherwise would have been spending more time in the Justice Center, or who the judiciary would have had really no other choice but to sentence to the Justice Center, another facility at lower cost outside of the Justice Center, where these folks can spend their time, so that we are using the Justice Center for where it is most critically needed, and for the inmates and the offenders where it is most critically needed. So just a couple of results here. 475 offenders participated through the CASC during year one, with a 91% completion rate. And again, that was funded through the general fund and the TCAP program, which is the grant that the courts receive from the state. And just a note for folks who may be watching, the board is aware of this, but the CASC is one of just a host of reintegration and alternative treatment programs that Hamilton County uses regularly. And I just listed out some of the other alternative treatment programs, including the Engagement Center, which was activated back in 2018 as well, and is a central component now of much of what we do in our addiction treatment services. The board prioritized heavily and continues to prioritize the work of the Office of Reentry in rehabilitation and reintegration alternatives. The Office of Reentry was instrumental in the creation of the Exit Pod, which continues to show a significantly reduced recidivism rate versus the general population at the Justice Center. The Office of Reentry also was instrumental in the creation of the One Stop Resource Center, and the Recovery Pod, where we help with medication-assisted treatment in the Justice Center to make sure that we are, again, helping people solve their problems so they don't come back through the Justice Center at the end of the day once they are out. And finally, the Pre-Arrest Diversion Program, which again is a program overseen by the Office of Reentry, but is helping us to redirect people with low-level offenses and who may have treatment needs around the justice system, so that we're not putting people who don't need to be in the Justice Center directly into that facility. The LEAD program is something that certainly bodes for a lot more discussion with the board in the future, but it is a program that, while we really wanted to kick this off at the beginning of the year, is one of actually many programs in the county that have been delayed by COVID-19. We literally are just kicking this program off and are ramping it up as we speak. So as we get more into the fourth quarter, more to come on this particular program. And again, I think it probably bodes for a deeper dive. In terms of prioritizing infrastructure, the crime lab construction, going back almost a decade ago, the board had identified the crime lab as its #1 public safety priority to make sure that we address what really is a piece of crumbling infrastructure in the county's public safety infrastructure. And we are making good on that. We have a $55 million state-of-the-art facility currently under construction out at Summit Park in Blue Ash. This is part of a long-term operational plan for the coroner's office and crime lab, and we are currently projecting that facility to come in on budget, and hopefully we'll be opening that first quarter of 2021. The board has for a long period of time also prioritized its 911 activities as really a best-in-class service provided by the county. We serve 105 police, fire, and EMS units in the county. And if you talk to our customers, they will tell you that the work of the Hamilton County Communications Center is exemplary in terms of providing emergency communications. The board has prioritized consolidation, reduced fragmentation, and partnerships out at the 911 center. So one of the ways that we have done that is by reducing this year the detail rate from $16 to $10. That has automatically added $1.7 million into the local public safety budgets of our participating consortium communities. We've also registered 25,000 individuals into Smart 911, which is also another element of the board's policy agenda, to make sure that first responders have access to real-time information about the household to which they're responding as they're responding. And if folks are watching, they can continue to sign up for Smart 911 on hcalert.org, and that will take them into the Smart 911 platform where they can sign up for Smart 911 in Hamilton County. We also successfully tested a remote backup center for 911 services this past year, which has been another longstanding priority of the board. Also in the realm of public safety, and this gets to the point of the policy agenda being really a living document, we did not, I don't think if you search our policy agenda, then that it really talks about our dog warden services. But over the past couple of years, this has risen steadily on the board's policy agenda. We are now in the first month of transitioning our dog warden services to Cincinnati Animal Cares. And I just put some highlights on the right within the first month. You can see some of the stats coming out of that organization. Big focus on adoptions, big focus on rescue, big focus on fostering animals. 66 families reunited with their pets, 76 animals sent to foster care, and 100 beds donated. And the beds donated, I was talking with the executive director of Cincinnati Animal Cares the other day, and one of the first things they did was engage a team of volunteers to donate beds to the facility so that the animals in our care are no longer sleeping on concrete floors, but they're actually sleeping above the floor, which obviously helps with their health and helps then with their ability to be adopted by families in Hamilton County. Moving on to shared services. The board has long prioritized shared services in Hamilton County as a means of making sure we're doing things cost effectively and also just leveraging partnerships with our surrounding municipal and township partners. I'm not going to go into detail on all of these, but on the left here you can see just and this is just a sampling of a wide array of services that the county has that we offer, that we engage in with either one or more communities in the county. Some highlights from this past year and past 2 years. I already mentioned the detail rate being lowered to encourage the consolidation of our 911 system. And I should mention, as we're talking about shared services, that as an urban county in 911, some of our colleagues in Franklin County and Cuyahoga County have communities where there are 3 to 8 times the number of 911 centers in those counties than we have here in Hamilton County. So we have done a great job of reducing the fragmentation in our system. We want to keep it that way, and that's why we have taken action to lower that detail rate. While you're not going to see it mentioned anywhere else in this presentation, I also threw in the CARES Act programming because I think the board in how it has directed these dollars to be used did a great job in terms of prioritizing these so that we could serve as a hub, the county could serve as a hub for partnerships and service with other communities. Communities didn't have to worry about going out and getting their own PPE. Communities didn't have to worry about doing their own small business programs or rental assistance programs. The county took care of all of that so that the communities could focus on the local programming that they needed to do in terms of maintaining the safety of their residents. The board prioritized getting economic development and community development dollars out to our local community partners. In the past, years ago, most of our community development block grants were just spread almost formulaically over all of the communities that were part of that consortium. The Board of Commissioners said we wanted to use those dollars more strategically, and so we have now started investing in specific big picture projects of many of these communities to better utilize that funding. And we also continue to offer programming like our building inspection programs that numerous communities use and just go through the county as opposed to having their own building inspection units. One example of that is our fire hydrant maintenance and repair operations. They service 15,000 hydrants throughout 30 communities in Hamilton County. They do approximately 900 repairs annually. And it may seem like a small thing, but it's a critical service for public safety. And it's just one more thing that local jurisdictions don't have to focus on. And the county funds this out of its water rotary fund, so it's something that doesn't have to hit the general fund of these other communities. As it relates to protecting vulnerable populations, the board has long prioritized various vulnerable populations, be it children, seniors, or the developmentally disabled. And the Hamilton County taxpayer has done a great job of being very generous with its dollars, as most of these services are provided through voted tax levies. However, the board, while these services are going on, the board has prioritized several different things in its policy agenda. In this last version, the board prioritized family unity and the needs of multi-system youth throughout the Children's Services Levy. Over the past couple of years, we're helping between 400 and 500 families annually through kinship programming. We're also helping around 136 families annually with the increased need for trauma-informed care in the home for children who have been the victims of multiple forms of trauma over their lives. And again, this gets to the point of there are some regimented ways you can do things. There are some other ways you can go about solving the problem. And with the help of our JFS staff, the board has come up with some creative ways to help address some of the big systemic problems that we're working on, that we're being hit with. In our senior services, the board has prioritized helping some of these populations navigate very complex systems. So whereas we continue to go about providing care to over 7,000 older adults through the levy, we're also working with the Council on Aging to provide specific programming to help seniors navigate complex medical systems, and also developing programs for caregivers to ensure that they have the resources they need to continue to provide care to the loved one that they are responsible for. No surprise to the board, water and sewer rates. The board has prioritized ratepayer affordability. The board put in place the customer assistance program back in early 2019, so that low-income seniors could receive a 25% rate discount on their sewer bills. The board also held rates flat for 5 years through 2019, and we did the calculations, the average residential benefit over that period is $50 per year. So all told, through the customer assistance program and holding rates flat, the ratepayers have greatly benefited from the programs that the board has put in place. The board, going back into 2019, also reached an agreement with Greater Cincinnati Waterworks to keep rate stability between the townships and the municipal corporations in Hamilton County as well. Economic development. I think with the in the policy agenda, the board was clear that they wanted to prioritize strategic investments. So we have leveraged some of our restricted funds, our parking enterprise funds, for the creation of infrastructure in the West End and also in the Findlay Market area, not only to serve the needs of the operational needs of FC Cincinnati, but to serve the broader development and retail needs of those two growing communities. We just acted on something related to the banks a few minutes ago, but obviously completion of phase 3B of the banks to expand the Smale Riverfront Park and to complete the music venue is of critical importance and was specifically called out in the policy agenda, as was the issue of the headquarter hotel and expansion of convention center space in Hamilton County as well. So the ultimate idea here, I think, is the board being very intentional and very specific and strategic about where it places its investments. These are just a couple of examples as to how we've done that over the past 2 years. One item that has bubbled up over the past couple years that is not as expressly mentioned in the policy document, but the board has, again, as the document is a living document, has continued to emphasize is prioritizing affordable housing options for county residents, especially as we've seen the studies about the affordable housing gap in the county. The board has taken quick action to start to prioritize its resources in that direction. Over the past 2 years, the board invested $2.2 million in 8 projects, resulting in almost 300 units of affordable housing, which has also leveraged $60 million in additional private investment. We also have not lost sight of our basic core programming in the economic development realm, the work of the Hamilton County Development Company in terms of providing small business loans and tax incentives through enterprise zones and community reinvestment areas, as well as the work of the Port Authority in helping us ensure that there are development-ready, site-ready places for companies wishing to expand or to locate to Hamilton County for them to find a home. And the board has also prioritized development and revitalization efforts in our first ring suburbs. We've given out over $800,000 in grants to facilitate $16 million in economic development projects in 8 communities over the past 2 years. And this is an item as we look to get into the 2021 budget that I know the board is looking to expand upon. We were looking to expand upon this year actually until COVID-19 hit. So we're going to be looking to pick that up in 2021. As the board also is aware, diversity and inclusion was a very intentional piece of the 1920 policy agenda, making sure that diversity and inclusion is represented as a core and critical element of everything that the county goes about doing. So number one, that started with the creation of the office. We are now looking to expand that office. We had a milestone back with the first work of the crime lab when 100% of that phase 1 work was performed by an MBE. And we have several other projects, the gender equity study that was done. We're now getting ready to follow that up with an economic disparity study. And as I mentioned earlier, preparing to expand this office to not just focus on the internal work of county departments, but to make sure that we are focusing on connecting vulnerable populations out into the community to the work of the county, so that we're not leaving any groups behind in Hamilton County, but we're making sure that if the county is performing a service, that individuals and residents in the community know how to access those critical resources. There are a whole host of other policy priorities that the board has layered into the 1920 policy agenda, all of which could be an entire staff meeting presentation on its own. I'm not going to go into them. Suffice it to say that the work of the Addiction Response Coalition, everything from QRTs to the Engagement Center, et cetera, the Women and Girls Coalition, or Commission on Women and Girls, the Oral Health Coalition, the initiative on Boys to Men to help at-risk young men, in Cradle Cincinnati on the issue of infant mortality. Again, all of these could be staff meeting presentations of their own, and I'm sure at some point will be, but are also a part of the broader work plan that we'll also report back on in December or January. Financial stewardship is a huge part of the board's policy agenda, making sure that we have a balanced budget, that we have prudent and increasing reserve levels, that we are making sure that our balances are healthy, that our bond ratings are maintained, that we are prudent as it relates to expenditures, and adequately tracking revenues. This would be the midway through the year was the first time that the Union Terminal sales tax proceeds began flowing into the county as well, which had they not at that time, we would have been looking this year at a much deeper budgetary impact from COVID-19 than we are looking at right now, where we are looking at right now, finishing the year in a relatively balanced state. That would not have been the case if those revenues had not transitioned mid-year. And finally, last two slides here. The board has also been very specific and diligent about wanting to ensure financial stewardship and accountability. We partnered this year, for the past 2 years, with the CBC and the CRBC in an effort conducted by private sector firm Crow LLC to do a expansive study of the financial condition of the county and provide recommendations. That study resulted in 31 specific recommendations. Most of those are included in reports that are on our website, and we are now working with the CBC and the CRBC to look at each of these independently and decide how we move forward and how we recommend to the board that we move forward with each of these, and how we close this this project out. And finally, I just wanted to close, commissioners, with as you begin considering individually and collectively the policy agenda for the year 2021 and 2022. These are some areas of consideration. Most of these have been areas that have been considered in past policy agenda documents, maybe with the exception of the first one. The first one I put on there is financial stabilization as we continue through the COVID-19 crisis. And while right now it appears we have our feet under us financially, at least as it relates to the general fund, the call for financial stabilization, I think, will continue. And we don't know what the long-term impacts are going to be here on the general fund, on the long-term impacts on sales taxes, property taxes, interest earnings, but even some of our restricted funds, parking, occupancy tax, et cetera, that we're really going to have to look at hard as we get into the next budget cycle. And then a host of other things that are typically on our policy agendas. But I just provide, I'm not going to go through each of them, but I just provide them here for your reference. And as you think about the things that are important to you, and there's going to be a host of things that you have that are not on this list, but I just wanted these to be a little bit of food for thought. So commissioners, that wraps up my formal presentation here. Happy to answer any questions or take any comments as we move into the next phase of this, which will be in future meetings, the discussion of the policy agenda for 2021 and 22.
Thanks, Jeff. It really is remarkable when you look at this list and you look at all that has been accomplished by the team, really. And Jeff, kudos to you and to others on the team throughout the administration that have really helped us accomplish so much of what we set out to do. It's just really, it's an impressive list on all fronts, I think. Tell me about the timing of the document. When is the best timing for the administration to receive the policy document?
Certainly, I think Sooner the better. We are in the early stages right now of working on the budget. We are in the process right now of taking in departmental requests and starting to size those up with revenue estimates. I plan to provide an administrator's recommended budget to the board likely in late October. It could be as late as early November. So if and we can continually be manipulating the budget as we move through. So I would say if it's possible for the administration to get something by late this month, early October, that would be great. Again, the earlier the better, but we don't want to wait too much longer or else that guidance will be holding up delivery of the budget, and we certainly don't want to drag the budget process out any longer than it has to be.
Okay. And with the uncertainty, I think, around COVID about how the sales tax is going to continue to come in, not only through the end of this year, but into next year, what is your recommendation when it pertains to some of the things that we had put into the policy agenda to guide the current budget? I especially am reminded of some of the economic development initiatives that the board wanted to be put in place, and a lot of that stuff got pulled back because we simply didn't have the dollars to fund it. Should we, my preference is to remain optimistic going into next year, put those things back in the hopes that we've seen some kind of recovery here so that it doesn't get lost, as opposed to leaving it out and then trying to put it in next year if we do see a recovery.
Yeah, I would certainly recommend that anything that the board sees as a priority, even if it was something that was in last year's policy document or last year's priorities, to continue to press that. Budget Director Bruggen and myself have that list of issues, and we're talking regularly about the need to attempt to incorporate those things back into the budget. But of course, we always call it the fiscal physics of the matter as well, as to whether we can get them in. But certainly the board continuing to emphasize that is only going to help keep it on our radar as well. So yes, without a doubt, continue to press us on those things, and we'll continue to do the best we can to make sure that the document we give to you in late October, early November is responsive to those policy desires.
Okay, great. Commissioner Summer-Odumas?
Thank you, Madam President. Just an awesome report due to you and your staff, just awesome staff, awesome administration, and the vision of the board. And you said it best, Jeff, when you said it's a living document. We put things in writing as a board, and it's happening. And some things were not able to come to fruition for many other reasons. But it's just, if I was just a citizen of Hamilton County and not a commissioner, I would be so proud of this commission board for the things that we have tackled. And I'm just really happy about it, and really happy about your staff that managed to make all those things happen, and that we as a board unified to make these things happen. So it's just a great day in Hamilton County.
Thank you, Commissioner. And it goes without saying, and you hit it very well, the number of people that touch every one of these programs. I mean, there are thousands of people involved with handling these programs, everywhere from the staff that reports directly to me, the department heads and the administration, who do a fantastic job of taking that and spreading it out to the folks who work for them and who ultimately wind up getting the work done. The frontline employees, the mid-level supervisors and managers, they're the ones that really get this done on behalf of the board. So I want to thank all of them, all the department heads and all the employees of the county, and all the employees of, when I said the county, I was referring to the Board of County Commissioner employees, but we partner with all of the separately elected offices in getting this done. And they're a huge part of just the basic core mandated services of the county. Probably 70% of what we do is criminal justice or public safety that's under the purview of the sheriff or the courts, whether it's juvenile court, common pleas, municipal probate. All of those departments and individuals play a huge role in getting this work done. And I do think it should be stated that while it's not necessarily listed in here, I think one of the things that the board has done over the past several years, and it's been really an unstated policy directive that the administration has heard loud and clear, is to make sure that we are working with those separately elected offices and forming partnerships with them, just as we would with communities outside of the county, to make sure that we're getting work done productively. And I think the relationship, while we may disagree on things regularly, the relationship between the board, the administration, and many of these elected offices is as good as it's been in recent memory. And I hope that continues to be the case.
And Madam President, if I could just, thanks, Jeff. I just wanted to say, one of the keys to it is that we were proactive versus being reactive. I mean, we've never been in a situation in general as this virus. And so you guys just took it, and went with it, and you were very, had a lot of forethought in it. And so that's just one instance. But I think we just have a cool team that knows we have to deal with the monies that are given to us and the cards that we are dealt. And you guys are just so proactive and not reactive. And that helps me a lot. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Parks?
Yes, thank you. I agree with everything that's been said, but you know, as Jeff was going through the list, I could not help but to think about Todd Platoon, all of the, you know, the list, and to think about his vision. And I would really like to hear like one of his 45-minute lectures, you know, right about now. You know, in terms of the banks, the crime lab, the services from 911, Smart 911, the kinship program. You know, we service 400 to 500 people. You know how proud he is. I'm just right now. I'm just really kind of choked up. You know, he worked so hard.
Yeah.
He was by himself for so long, and he finally got a team when Denise came along, and was able to put these things into action. And they do so much for our county and for our community. I'm right now, I'm just really proud to vote on his behalf for things like this. So, you know, when we talk about MSD, you know, in the customer assistance program, you know, he fought for that, and he didn't have the votes before. We got the phase 3 done. He did the work for HCDC and the Port Authority. So right now I'm just missing him. And I feel like we have actually worked to complete that policy agenda. And I'm proud of it. I'm proud to work with all of you guys. And I thank everybody for the hard work and dedication that goes into actually doing the best that we can for our county.
Yeah, thanks, Commissioner Parks. So, yeah, because these just build on one another. You know, as we have these policy agendas, they build, but the staff is the one that implements all of it and does the hard work. So, and of course, the community benefits, and these policy agendas are all reflective of what we have all heard from people in the community as we've interacted, and all of this is informed by what people have told us they want for this county and how they want the county to serve the citizens. So thank you both for your perspectives. Thank you, Jeff, and John Brugan. Of course, it goes without saying the budget director puts in an awful lot of time and effort trying to get all of this organized and figure out what we're capable of doing. Because some of these ideas are, you know, within budget, and some are, we're pushing the envelope. But I do believe that, you know, while we set policy, we should push the envelope and continue to make sure that we're making strides in Hamilton County. But thanks to John, thanks to Jeff, Holly, and the rest of the budget team in particular that helps put all this together. So I will promise all of you that I will have something to you in 2 weeks. We will follow the framework that we've followed in the past and make sure that you all have plenty of time to add to it, respond to it, so that we, again, Jeff, have something by the end of the month-ish, maybe beginning of next month. So we'll try to get something out within the next couple of weeks. So I'll alert you to the fact that it's coming and make sure that it's a robust document as they have been in the past. So
thank you, Commissioner.
Thanks.
And just again, a brief note of thanks to everyone on the county team who helped pull this particular presentation together. I pestered people quite a bit over the past couple of weeks to make sure that we were getting, and for the folks who provided information that I did not use, an apology to them, because as I said, there is just so much that has been done, and every time it's really humbling just to look at the amount of work that's being done. And it's really again, as I said, the department heads, the division heads, the employees on the front line that are getting all this stuff pulled off. And so every time I can't use a piece of information, I feel bad about it, because I know that's something that someone's been working really hard on. But I promise you, all that stuff is going to surface here at some point in time, and there's going to be opportunity to delve into it.
Yeah, thanks. And it goes without saying, too, that our partners, the other electeds, who have been really great through the pandemic and helping us right-size the budget due to the reduction in revenue, especially in sales tax, they, too, are our partners in this. And I agree, Jeff, that the relationship now and hopefully moving forward will continue to be a constructive one, where we are all kind of participating together and trying to figure this stuff out in a really challenging time. So anyway, and I do want to shout out to JFS too for all the work they've done. When you talk about kinship care and the Children's Services Levy and so all the really progressive stuff we've done, that's for the kids in this community, it's been so meaningful. So a big shout out to Moira Weir and Tim McCartney, who is now the director over there. So more to come on this. We'll talk more about the policy agenda, but thanks for the update. It's been really instructive. And I'll get something out in a couple weeks to everybody.
Great. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. And then lastly, we've got the CARES Act update. Now, this is another one where, staff has done so much work in a short period of time to roll these dollars out into the community, informed by what we know the needs are, because, on the ground, this is what we're hearing. So thank you to my two colleagues, Commissioners Summer Dumas and Parks, for all of their help with this. This has been, it's odd because seldom do we have the opportunity to respond in this way to the community needs, but because the federal government allowed us through these dollars to do this work, staff is talk about taking the bull by the horns. In a very short period of time, we've rolled out a lot of assistance. So Jeff is poised to give us an update to the CARES Act funding, knowing that at this moment in time, we have to spend these dollars by the end of the year. And just as a reminder, we are advocating to our federal legislators, both on the Senate side and on the House side, to potentially allow us to have more resources. And I mean by that, every community, city, village, county throughout the state, flexibility with those dollars so that we can use them where we know we need to use them, some direct allocation so there's no delay, and also an extended time frame so that if we were to have some dollars or additional flexibility, then we have a little bit more time to roll those dollars out the door. So those are the things we're advocating for. CCAO has been a big part of that. But in the meantime, we need to get an update on how things are going. So I see that Holly has joined as well. Thank you, Holly. And Holly, will you especially call out your team? We've redirected people from other departments to help with this COVID work and the CARES Act money work. Holly has been the ringleader, but there are others on that team. So Holly, would you, before you get started, please recognize those that have helped you in this?
Absolutely. Thank you. Good afternoon. So our CARES Act team includes a variety of very talented employees, as you all know, and that includes Brian Walmsley, who is with Planning and Development, Michelle Baltz and Ali Kodadad, who are with Environmental Services, Jen Ketter, Rob Wagner, John Brugan, and Lisa Webb. We pretty much have the entire budget staff on this team. We also had, let's see, Melanie Augustine with emergency management is helping out. And let's see, I don't want to forget our, we couldn't do this without the prosecutor's office, in particular, Cindy Fazio and Jay Wampler, who have been with us meeting every week to make sure we don't do anything wonky with the treasury guidance that we have.
So we don't have to pay any of it back, right, Holly?
That's
You don't have to pay anything back. We have a lot of good people making sure we don't do that. We do everything as best as we can. I will say, in addition to this team, we have pulled in a whole bunch of others to help with individual programs. So you all know the strength of our community development team that we have, small but mighty. So Boubacar Diallo, Joy Pearson, and Emily Carnahan have really stepped up, as well as JFS with our new workforce development programs that we're getting ready to launch. We've got, let's see, I know I'm going to forget so many people, but all the folks at HCDC, Bridget Doherty, I mean, just a whole team that have really come together to help us get these, not only the broad programs up and running, but also these individual ones.
And Holly, if I could just very quickly, number one, as Commissioner Dreehouse says, you've already done, just thank Holly for just all of, I just know how much she's worked on this program, and how much this has consumed her life over the past couple of months. It has been all consuming, and she's just done a great job with it. So I want to thank her for keeping it all on track, as well as Holly mentioned a dozen or more people, all of whom report to somebody, in most cases, who is also has a work plan that they're expecting this person to get something done. In other words, these people had day jobs before this. And so I really want to thank the supervisors and the department heads who have been flexible in terms of allowing these folks to leverage their talents and creativity into this CARES Act program, which was really just dropped out of the blue onto us back in March and April. So we're really happy to have their support as well.
I forgot one person, Bert Watts with County Facilities. I can't believe I forgot him. So my apologies, Bert, if you're watching. So with that, I guess, Jeff, do you want me to go ahead? Or
yeah, why don't you go ahead? I just wanted to just mention right off the top that as Holly talks a little bit about where we are with the programming, each one of these right now, really the reason to bring it before the board today, other than just to provide a general update, is to say, and Madam President, you said it a little bit earlier, but we're kind of getting into the bell lap on the program. We are advocating with the federal government for more time and more resources and more flexibility with our resources, but we don't know yet that we're going to get that. So we are moving forward with these programs as if they are going to end on December the 30th of 2020. So with that being said, Holly's going to go through a list of programs to kind of level set where we are. I would kind of term this meeting as kind of a last call for ideas. Of course, there's, obviously commissioners call, send me a notice that we want to look into something. We'll come back to the board with ideas. But if there are spurred from this presentation, if individual offices or the commission as a whole has any ideas about other things you'd like to see, we're kind of getting to the point in time right now when we need to hear those ideas, because we're not going to be very too far out into the distant future before implementing something new becomes either impractical or just impossible because we don't have the money to do it. So that was kind of the impetus for today's presentation. So Holly, with that, I'll just turn it over to you to walk through where we are with all of our programming.
Thanks. Well, I'm going to take you back, which seems probably like 8 years ago, but it was only, I think, 4 months ago that the board passed our CARES Act plan, which, as you may recall, had funding divided into 4 buckets. And that was public health response, vulnerable populations, community and economic assistance, and county operational response. And that's where our $142 million was divvied into those buckets. And so public health response, just as a quick refresher, and for those watching, that includes programs such as the great work that EMA is doing with purchasing PPE for all of our partners to use. It also includes a warehouse to help distribute that PPE from. You may recall that warehouse was approved at the last meeting, that lease. What also falls under public health, as you all know, is our new testing program. We just entered into a contract about a month ago with the Health Collaborative in the amount of $18.2 million to do additional testing. I'll talk a little bit about initial results in a minute. We also, under the heading of public health response, developed a program to help those childcare facilities that operated under a pandemic license from mid-March through the end of May. Again, I'll give an update in a minute on where that stands. And then, of course, we also have funding set aside for the additional contact tracing through public health. We're starting to move some funds over to that to reimburse them for the time they had to hire temporary labor. We've actually had some employees that were redeployed to do contact tracing. So those all are some of the items and programs that fall into that public health response. The next bucket is assistance to vulnerable populations. And this, you may remember, this was one of the first programs we kicked off. It's hard to believe, it's actually, it was back in April, was assistance to the homeless population. So you may recall, we have about $3 million budgeted, and we've spent, or will be spending, roughly 1.1 on the hotels to allow for proper distancing in the shelters. And then we also are looking at ways to make permanent improvements to homeless shelters to allow residents to come back from hotels. And so we're in process right now with that. We also have money set aside to reimburse some of our agencies for funds needed to buy additional COVID-related expenses or COVID-related items that were necessary in order for the organizations to continue to operate. So, for example, we are going to reimburse Council on Aging, for example, for all the senior needs that had to have been purchased that were necessary due to COVID-19. We're also doing the same for DDS as well as the Mental Health and Recovery Board. So we have funds set aside for those. Jen Ketter on our team is working with them as we speak to gather all the documentation to ensure that the funds are being spent, again, for COVID-related expenses only. And we also have in that bucket of funding set aside for domestic violence response. And what we did with that program is we combined it with our nonprofit grant that I'll be talking about in a minute and give you an update on how that stands. We also then have a bucket on community and economic assistance. And again, aside from the homeless sheltering, I think the second program we kicked off was a small business program, and that's one of the programs under this heading. So we have $7.5 million for the small business relief program. As you know, we've done the first round. We closed the second round applications on Friday. And you'll get an update in a second on where that stands. Also under this heading is rental assistance. I think you're well up to speed on that. We have funding set aside for convention and tourism response, in the amount of $2 million. And of course, the biggest pot of funding under this heading is the funding to our local jurisdictions to transfer funds to them for COVID-related expenses. And we are just finalizing those agreements today and tomorrow, I think, with the prosecutor's office to get that program moving out the door. And then, as you may recall, last week we added a couple programs under this heading for workforce development as well as youth programs. Those were just added last week. And then, of course, we have the nonprofit assistance grant program. And then the last bucket is the county operational response. This is, again, we've had many departments had to adjust their operations, account for teleworking. You've seen all the plastic barriers that are put up around all the county buildings, thanks to our facilities team. All those things have cost money, and we are seeking reimbursement through the CARES dollars for that. We talked, again, as approved last week, we're doing some facility improvements, including some HEPA units for certain areas of our buildings to allow for increased air filtration. And we also have, of course, reimbursement for those employees that may had to be redeployed to work on different CARES Act programming. So that is a summary of kind of everything that's going on. And of course, we, last but not least, we also have money in the county operational response for public safety personnel, as we've talked about. So where we are, I'm gonna just share my screen here. This is just everyone see that?
No.
No.
Okay. A great time for my computer to lock up. Oh. Let's see.
Seems to be, there it is. Now
There
we
you
can
go.
see it.
I'm gonna see if Bridget is on. I think I emailed it to her because my.
We got it.
It's up. It's up
Yeah,
now.
it's up.
Okay. Great. Well, I'm glad you all can see it. I can't, but at least you can.
Okay, so it
Now
just
we
went
cannot.
back down.
It just went off.
Holly, I'm going to share it for you.
Thanks,
There we
Bridget.
go.
So these are some of the results so far. Please know that we are getting updated numbers for some of these later this week. I think the rental assistance program is the same number that was reported last week, but we'll have new numbers towards the end of this week. But again, we're working with 3 agencies to help those residents that are struggling with rent or utilities because of a COVID-19 job loss or loss of income. So 234 households so far. The small business grants, you're well aware, I think, of the success of the first round. The second round closed on Friday, and we had 660 applications. So yeah,
That's
great. A great response. And so grateful to Bridget and all the commissioners, all 3 of you I know helped us spread the word on this program. So we're really excited to work with our partners at HCDC to start reviewing these and getting that money out the door. So we anticipate spending all of the money in that line item, $7.5 million total.
So Holly, can I ask a question? So with the 660, do you have a need to go into the lottery?
I will find out later this afternoon.
Okay.
And get back with you. Yeah. The third program I've mentioned that's underway is the emergency pandemic childcare providers reimbursement. As you can imagine, those providers that were operating during that mid-March through end of May time period really had increasing costs in terms of additional cleaning, additional barriers, additional potentially staff they had to bring in order to distance the kids. So we received, as you can see, 179 applications that closed, I believe it was last week, and that review is in process. And we're working with 4C and Robert Bell is helping lead this initiative. So we should have hopefully some awards coming in the next couple of weeks. I mentioned the county departmental reimbursements. We've had 14 departments come in, request for reimbursements that we have since adjusted their budget. Again, it ranges from a lot of plastic barriers, Zoom licenses, you can imagine that folks need, new laptops, new cameras to allow for more remote workforce, and a lot of PPE and cleaning products. I mentioned the nonprofit grant. We had $5 million plus $500,000 for domestic violence. We had 97 applications. Now, not all of them will be eligible. Those are community development staff are reviewing those literally as we speak right now. So we anticipate right about $5-ish million being awarded, but that's pretty early on. I'll make sure to relay the results as soon as we have those. And I believe we received roughly a little over $300,000 in programs related to domestic violence. So we're within that budget. PPE, I think you all know the great work of our emergency management agency. We're using 2 pots of funding for PPE. We're hoping to submit to FEMA for about $1.5 million that's already been spent. And then we're also going to use our CARES Act dollars for anything remaining. And so far, they've distributed PPE to over 400 organizations in Hamilton County. So that's police, fire, human services organizations. They've done just a tremendous job. And then the testing, as I mentioned, we entered into an $18.2 million contract with the Health Collaborative, who is partnering with all of the major health systems to help with our testing. They just started late last week and just got this number this morning. They've done over 250 tests so far. Now, not all of those may or may not be billed to us, depending if they had insurance. But that program is starting to has been launched and is starting to ramp up. So that's a lot of information. We'll be sure to update these numbers because things are changing almost every day as programs are coming online and having money going out the door. I think just a few things in progress that I think you'll probably are aware of. We talked about workforce development. We're working closely with JFS on a couple of programs related to that in terms of additional training to our existing training providers, as well as what we're calling this kind of rapid reemployment program to help people that are actually calling for, say, for example, rental assistance and need to find a job when they're on their phone right there. And we want to be able to help those residents as soon as possible. So we're working on that. We're working with looking at better ways to help people who are quarantined. As you can imagine, with all of this new testing taking place, we're looking at up to 175,000 new tests and a very targeted approach. So we are anticipating getting more and more calls for assistance with people who are being quarantined or have to isolate while they're waiting for the test result. And they may need things like groceries. They may need rental assistance. They may need medical supplies, cleaning supplies. So we're looking at ways to ramp that program up, and you'll be hearing more about that most likely shortly. And then I've already mentioned we are working very closely right now and starting to get out the door reimbursement to the senior agencies as well as our partners at Mental Health Recovery Board. And then, of course, the community assistance program, getting those agreements out the door, hopefully later this week, early next week. Whew. So with that, I can take any questions. That's pretty quick, but wanted to give you an update and see if there's any feedback, any additional information you'd like, or any gaps you're seeing in our programming.
Yes, so thanks, Holly. Thanks. Wu is right?
Right.
Hey, very, very quickly, when we look at that top item, the rental assistance program, in the beginning, that money flew out the door, and this board allocated more dollars for that. Where are we with that, and what kind of capacity is left in that bucket?
We have plenty of money left in the bucket. I think what was surprising when this program kicked off was the number of requests that were received right off the bat. I think they had 2,000 calls within that first 24 to 30 hours. And we knew the demand was more than I could have imagined. So the struggle right now, and our agencies are really doing a great job of ramping up, is the volume of coming in and doing the screening and getting the checks to the right landlords. So it's just, I think in talking with Joy Pearson and Michelle Baltz, who are leading this program, they are meeting with the team, the providers every week, and every week they're ramping things up faster and faster. So I guess I'll have a better answer for you. The money, we're fine right now. It's just going to depend on what the need is in late October, November, of how much we'll spend, or may potentially need more.
Okay.
So Holly, what does this 234 represent?
That's the number of households that have been provided assistance. So they've been given rent or utility assistance.
Since when? Since
the program kicked off in late July.
Okay. So is that number low?
I mean, we anticipated about, I think it was a little under 2,000 to be served. So I think kicking off a program of this magnitude took some time to ramp up, and they're starting to ramp up now.
Okay.
So,
So this number represents the beginning.
correct.
Okay, and you still have, because you said that there's 2,000.
That's how many we had initially called. Not all of them were eligible.
Okay. So that means that you have not been through all of the applications yet?
Correct.
Okay.
There's a backlog
Okay.
on this one.
Yeah, we have to, as you can imagine, because of the CARES Act dollars, we have to make sure we have to document, right, who it's going to, and make sure they've had
Sure.
that reduction in pay. And
Sure.
that does unfortunately take some time.
Okay, and is the same thing true for the daycare, for the childcare?
In terms of,
There are more than 179.
no, I'll have to check with Robert. I think there were high 200s. But this is what we had as of this morning that applied prior to the deadline.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Yes, to be clear on that one, Holly, these are only child care providers that operated with a pandemic license during this time, right? So it's going to be a smaller subset than just a child care center that was closed down over this time, over the shutdown order, would not be eligible for these particular funds, correct?
Right.
And commissioners, one additional thing. So I've asked, and some of your questions are kind of leading in this way. I've asked Holly to pull together, first of all, a reconciliation of the dollars that are available. We've got the dollars available from a budgetary perspective, but as these programs start to get implemented and we start to get results and we start to see how much is actually going to be used out of each program, Holly is going to comb through these programs and see what then can be pulled to the bottom line, or say if we're not going to use all of the money out of departmental reimbursements, how much of that comes to the bottom line. So we'll have that number, at least in draft form, later on this week, probably. So I'll let the board know about that when we get it. The additional thing that then comes from that is any additional policy guidance we get from the board. And I've also asked Holly to come up with, out of our existing program slate, things that could be implemented very quickly, whether it's another round of small business assistance, additional assistance on the rental side of things. But what do we have where, the last thing we want to do is send money back that otherwise could be used for the benefit of residents and businesses and stakeholders here in Hamilton County. So we're coming up with those ideas, and we'll combine that with anything additional from a policy perspective we get from the board to make sure that we drive this thing to conclusion and use as much of the resources here locally as we can.
So I know all three of us have been approached with by folks with different ideas. The challenge here is that all the money has to be spent in response to COVID-19. So there are tons of great ideas. It's just a matter of whether or not they fit. So two things, Jeff, that I have been asked about. One is broadband access, especially for kids as they try to go to school virtually, and some of them don't have access to broadband. Even though they might have the laptop, they can't access the internet, and so they're having some trouble there. So Holly and I talked about this a couple weeks ago. The challenge there is that we can't spend the money on anything past the end of the year. So because of that, we can't buy the service for the child for the school year, because that's beyond the time frame. So my question back to Holly then was, are there any capital needs related to this? And so Holly, I know you've been digging into that, and I'm hoping you can provide an update on that one. And then the other one was, I got a call last week from folks in the arts community who have been shut down and are really struggling. And not only from the employee side, but the idea is that once we start to open back up, some of the arts will bring people back into the community, and if, is there any opportunity to be helpful there? So those are the two things that have been brought to my attention. I think the broadband one is what I'm very interested in hearing about, if we have been able to figure that one out.
Sure, thank you. Yes, we're continuing to work through that, and been working with, again, I can't think of her enough, Joy Pearson. We've had some good conversations just late last week. And I actually have a call in today to better understand the need from a school perspective broadly. But we have some of the facilities we thought needed assistance. It sounds like some other funding is coming through. So we're working through that as we speak. So I can give you a better update, more clarity here in a few days.
Okay.
I have a couple comments.
I'm sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
No, you go on. You can finish.
Well, I was just going to say, so the other funding, is it United Way funding or coming from other sources?
It was coming from other sources that they're getting CARES Act dollars from someone else.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah. So just to be clear, commissioners, we were talking about maybe setting up hotspots in some, say, CMHA buildings where we know we've got families in those buildings. If we could provide just to some of these locations, that's something that we were interested in doing. Okay. Thank you.
Get you more for sure. And if there's a better opportunity for us.
I wanted to bring up about the small businesses and the fact that you were saying we have 660 that have applied. And really, if there was some way that if they're eligible, that we can give all of them the funding, and maybe, as Jeff was saying, if there's money left over in other areas, to allocate it to small businesses allocation, so they don't have to go into a lottery if they're eligible. That would be, I would really like that if we could do that. So, because of course we know they really need it. So we don't want to add any more stress on these small businesses wondering, are they going to be picked? So the other thing is, Holly, I know you were looking at youth programming and how COVID has impacted the youth. I'm looking at it in a mental health way also, but also if they can be busy with some employment, some immediate employment, maybe even in their neighborhoods. I saw a great spot on the news last night. 3 brothers were going around the neighborhood picking up trash, and they say they want to be busy. They're going crazy in the house and all those things, and they want to be a positive influence. And so you can really tell how this COVID has impacted them, just as an example. So I was just wondering what you guys, I know you've been working on how we could possibly use that money for youth, and could you speak more to that?
Sure. Well, our initial look was going to be what organizations, if any, applied to our nonprofit grant, just to see to help us better understand. And I received those over the weekend, and we did have a handful of youth, ranged from there were a few youth employment, workforce development, and 2 or 3, I think, other type of organizations focused on youth. So we're combing through those right now to see if that helps meet the need, and if not, are there programs they're doing that can be leveraged with these dollars. Okay. We're also, I think, Jeff, looking at United Way as well, correct?
Yeah, so we wanted to first take a look at the nonprofit grants that we have received, to see if there's anything there that just jumps out that we can fund immediately to address the policy need of youth-related, workforce or mental health-related issues. I've also talked to Moira over at the United Way, and she has identified a couple of entities that they work with, nonprofit entities, that I don't know have submitted through our particular program, but specifically have youth-related employment services that United Way works with. And I've got Moira on hold a little bit right now until we complete this nonprofit grant research, and then if we don't find anything in this first strategy, then I'm going to hook up with the United Way and see if we can have a conversation with them and with some of the entities they normally work with, and see if we can target some programming from that approach as well. And we're also looking at talking with JFS, who also does some youth-related activities as well, and to see if they have something that could be bolstered with some funding from us also.
Okay, sounds good. And I hear the different agencies, but I'm wondering about our ability to look at youth groups that already exist in different communities, and that we would administer, of course, the monies that would be spent, but existing youth groups in every community in the county, and see if we could, because as you were saying, the money has to be spent by December. We don't want to disseminate money out to the county. We would administer it. But are there youth groups in different neighborhoods, and we can implore that they apply to be a part of this work program, this county work program, and try to do it directly, not versus, but in tandem with the agencies that we're working with. But I'm sure there are groups that are just trying to find things to do with their youth, and frustrated maybe not being able to do that. So I'm just suggesting in tandem to do that also.
Okay, yeah, we can take a look at that also.
Okay.
Hey, Jeff, I'm thinking about that technical education that has been started by the different companies that as a result of the COVID-19 for the young people that have, or the vulnerable populations that have been laid off and are being trained. There is a program through JFS.
Yeah, there are a couple of programs through JFS that we've talked with them about. I don't have specific information on all of them right in front of me, but yes, we have talked with JFS to see if there is some, as the board is aware, we contract through JFS with various entities to do certain types of employment training, some of which focuses on youth. And so we wanted to see if there's some of those existing relationships that we can leverage. One issue that we've run into a bit is that the issue of youth employment takes a little bit of a different turn once you hit the school year as it does when you're in the summer. So we're working through some of that as well. But yes, Commissioner, there are some of those existing relationships that we're seeing if it makes sense to leverage.
So maybe what Commissioner Sumero Dumas is talking about, maybe we can hook her up to this. It's not so much community as it is a job opportunity, right? And for training. And it'll fit under the CARES Act because this population has been affected by COVID-19.
And we certainly have to make that connection as well, right? So and we're trying to navigate all of those hoops to make sure that yes, that if we are going to spend money on job training for someone or on employment for someone, it has to be for a documented COVID-19 related issue. And we think that there are ways that we can structure a program in that way, but as with all of these programs, it's never completely easy about how we go about doing that. But yes, that is one of the hurdles we have to jump.
Oh, no, we can't do anything easy.
And Jeff, I hear your kind of difficulty with making sure that we meet the standard. And of course we want to do that. But we talk about youth employment. It could be youth activity. We read and we hear and we listen all the time about this, the stress that these young people are under because of this COVID. So I don't understand. I think we'll be able to justify it. And then even if it's employment, but it's activities, as I was saying, activities in the community that they can't do in a gymnasium or whatever, to keep them busy, keep their mind off of the stress of what's going on. So I really don't think we'll have a problem justifying spending money in that area. We've spent money in every area other than the youth. So I really thank the board for allocating the $1 million for that purpose.
Yeah, and while and I want to be clear, there's been difficulties and hurdles to jump with every single one of the programs that we've had. This is no different. It's just it's new and we're just getting into it, and that's why we really wanted to take a hard look at the programs that were submitted through the nonprofit grant program, because these are entities that have already thought through the issue and come up with ideas and said, hey, what about this? We want to see if any of those fit first. And if not, we'll move on and look at other things as well. And probably do that regardless of whether these things work or not.
And I appreciate the thoroughness of you and Holly looking at it, so.
All right, very good. Thank you. And Jeff, you alluded to kind of the math equation here where we see what we've spent, see what's been encumbered, and see what's left. So if you could provide that maybe at the next staff meeting, we'll continue to get these updates and get a better handle on if there's some dollars still available for something else that we're made aware of that. So either we add them to maybe another program has been suggested, or maybe something on broadband comes through, or something other than that. So that would be appreciated. Maybe can you get it together for the next meeting?
Yeah, we should have it later this week, I would think.
Okay.
By next Tuesday, absolutely.
Okay, all right, that'd be great. Okay, thank you for the update. Commissioners, any other questions related to the update?
I have nothing.
Nothing. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Holly. Holly jumped off already. She's busy.
She's out of here.
She's like, I gotta go. I got work to do. Yeah, that's right. So, I just was going to thank her one more time. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but every now and again on a week, there she is. On a weekend, I am down and out and about near this building and in this building. And there have been weekends where both Bridget and Holly in particular have been working on, especially the rental assistance and the small business program. So your dedication, Holly, is not going unnoticed. And we really, really are grateful to you and the team for putting in so much time. It's really been a ride, hasn't it? It's been a ride. So thanks for everything. All right, very good. Well, that is the conclusion of our agenda. Jeff, is there anything else?
Nothing else for today, commissioners. Thank you.
And we don't have any executive sessions today, ladies. So we're in good stead today. All right, well, very good. Well, we will be back on Thursday for our regular meeting. So thank you all for jumping on, and have a good couple of days here.
Thank you.
I'm going to move that we adjourn.
So moved.
Second, Commissioner Dreehouse,
Yes.
Commissioner Summer Dumas,
Yes.
Commissioner Parks.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Bye.
Bye.